And welcome to this edition of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, episode number 86. Keith Archer of All Things Giants joins me now. We're going to talk about Rob Sale, the new offensive line coach for the New York Giants. We're going to talk about the tackle position and the center position, two key positions when it comes to the offensive line, two key debate positions. Keith, how are you doing today? And did you feel since you were on my Super Bowl stream? Were you just bored with the second half of the game? Because it seemed like it was such overhyped from the beginning, and then now we didn't get a great result from Patrick Mahomes. And actually, before I let you get your thoughts in, the last time that the Chiefs did not score a touchdown in the game was against the Giants in 2017.
Yeah, I did see that stat pop up a couple times, and I'm doing great. I had a great time in the when we did our little podcast before the Super Bowl. Gave me something to do, and I enjoyed meeting a lot of the guys. The second half, I kind of bet on the Chiefs, so I was kind of hoping Mahomes could pull one of his comebacks, but just due to the pressure and how bad their O-line was playing, I gave up toward the end of the third quarter, and I was just talking with a couple of buddies I had at my house, and we were just talking about the game. We didn't really watch the end because it was nothing to watch.
And we did talk about a little bit. I don't know who remarked on it in our stream. The fact that they were playing with backup tackles. Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz were out, so Mike Remmers and Andrew Wiley on the tackle sides. And I think it was actually you who said they should go tackle at 31 or 32. So I guess that, obviously, yeah, they do have Pro Bowl good tackles, but, you could add some depth in there, maybe some defense. But obviously that's later on because we have to see what free agency brings. But let's get into some Giants topics. So the Giants hired Louisiana Raging Cajuns offensive coordinator and offensive line coach Rob Sale to be their offensive line coach. This one kind of was out of the blue for me, at least, because I was expecting someone more NFL, someone actually maybe, on the other hand, more, I would say, not coming from the Raging Cajuns, but like someone from the SEC or something like that, like a bigger school. But definitely his resume is impressive. He was with Joe Judge at Alabama for about 4 years, I want to say. As I said, he's the offensive coordinator, or was for the Raging Cajuns. We'll go over those stats in a minute. But he was with Billy Napier at Arizona State before they went over to the Raging Cajuns. Here are his stats when he was the offensive coordinator: 31.9 points per game, 427.6 yards of total offense per game, 247.7 passing yards per game, and 179 rushing yards per game. So it seems like despite whether he was in a small school or a big school, he had success wherever he went, whether it was under Napier or under somebody else. So from 2020, obviously, as I said, he's the offensive coordinator. His team, being the Raging Cajuns, fifth in the Sun Belt Conference in total yards per game, eighth in passing yards per game, fourth in rushing yards per game, and third in points per game. 9 sacks allowed, which was the best among Sun Belt teams. They were 7-1. And also to note upon that, Robert Hunt, he was drafted in the second round by the Miami Dolphins last year, and Kevin Dotson was drafted in the fourth round by the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, and Elijah Mitchell, the running back from the Raging Cajuns, is expected to be in the 2021 NFL Draft, is probably a late-round selection. Also, Raymond Calais was selected by the Bucs in the 7th round of the draft. I think he's now with the Rams. So did this catch you by surprise, not being somebody from the NFL or a bigger school? What's your overall thoughts on the hiring?
No, it didn't really. I'm not gonna say it didn't surprise me, but when looking at the names that were brought up, I saw his name a good amount, so I didn't really catch me off guard. And like you said, he had previous ties with Joe Judge, but Bobby and Talking Giants brought up a great point about, like you said, he, like Joe Judge, talks about how getting guys from the college level is better, and he said that because college coaches have to, every guy that they bring in is a prospect. They're a project that they have to work on. So bringing a guy from college, he has a mentality that everybody he coaches is a project, and they have to work on them day in and day out. So I like that hire. And like you said, they only allowed 9 sacks. And I think the 4th round selection that the Steelers had, I think you said his name was Kevin Hunt.
Kevin Dotson.
Dotson, yeah. His name popped up a lot, and people said he was a very good O-lineman this year. So I personally think this is a really good hire. What Joe Judge believes in, I believe in. He's shown me that his hires have been pretty good. With Jason Garrett, really wasn't his hire, so I won't count that. But Patrick Graham was his hire, so I'm excited to see what he does with the O line. Andrew Thomas started playing better toward the end of the season, although he had a bad ankle, which was pretty impressive. So I'm excited to see what he can do with the offensive line.
Definitely. And Joe Judge, something's interesting. I'm going to pull this up in a minute. He said he wanted teachers. Rob Sale's a teacher, and good point to bring up that you were talking about projects and everything, and prospects and all that stuff. Is that college coaches have an advantage when it comes to scouting college prospects? They're in that level, so they know. It's kind of like being on the same team as somebody, and knowing if this guy's good or if he's not good. Now, the thing that caught me by surprise when I was on Twitter this morning, this guy said that in one of Rob Sale's press conferences, he said that he does not like to rotate offensive linemen. He wants the best five to play, which is kind of different from what the Giants did this season. And it's going to be interesting. Is it going to be Joe Judge's way of doing things, or is it going to be Rob Sale's way of doing things? Because we rotated linemen with Mark Colombo. We know that he didn't do that in Dallas. We know Dave DeGuglielmo, the interim offensive line coach towards the end of the season, he did that, and he was a fan of that in New England. So that's where Joe Judge got it from. So it's going to be interesting to see how it really goes this season. But whether it's rotating or whether it's not rotating offensive linemen, this unit has to improve. And you have a lot of young guys. You could be going out there and getting a free agent. Who knows? Maybe a draft pick. But anyway, they have to protect Daniel Jones, and they have to give Saquon Barkley running room. So that's going to be key. So let's go into the tackle position, but just going to label out some key names in the tackle and center positions: Cameron Fleming, Matt Parrott, Andrew Thomas, Nate Solder, Jackson Barton, Nick Gates, and Jonathan Harrison, Spencer Pulley as well. So obviously it was rumored today per SNY that the Giants expect Nate Solder to retire. And I understand that line of thinking, but at the same time, you shouldn't be betting on it and placing all your cards on the table on that certain aspect, because if he doesn't retire, you're going to have to cut him, and it will be 10 million dead cap, 6 million saved. So you basically got negative 4 million, but at the same time, you save what you can save. I think that they should still go out there and, just in case, cut him, because I think even if he retires, I think it's going to be the same result. What do you think about that, and how do you think the Giants should approach it?
Personally, I think Nate Solder, he opted out last year, and the year he did play with us, he didn't play at a top tier level. So with his dealing with his contract, we might as well just get it out while we can and head into free agency, knowing if, like you said, they like to rotate linemen. So we know he won't be here and he's not in our future plan. So we might as well get him out while we can, do what we have to do when it comes to the money, and just go into free agency understanding that we have to, if we're not trying to find starters, we have to find rotational guys who we can put in and step in, instead of delaying whether we're going to keep him, let him retire, or release him into the draft or next season, and then he ends up retiring and we're left with nothing to do. So I just think you get ahead of it, you let him go, and you deal with that contract nonsense right now and before free agency begins.
Now, I know obviously a lot of fans bring this up that post June 1st, they save like 11 million. What's the point of having it post June 1st when literally the draft and free agency is before that? And even when you make your cuts. So just get it out with, get it over with, and move on from the guy. He retires. That's his decision after the Giants cut him. That's just my personal opinion, and I know that you agree with me there. Let's go over the stats for 2021 and what the offensive tackles did. I'm not counting Nick Gates. Obviously, he was the starter at center. So Andrew Thomas, he had a tough start to the season: 10 sacks, 9 quarterback hits allowed, 41 pressures. He had 15 starts in 16 games. Notice the little space in between there was because Joe Judge technically benched him for, I think it was a quarter or half a quarter, because he didn't arrive to a meeting on time. And I don't know if they fined him, but at the same time, they benched him. And Matt Parrott started left tackle week 6 against the Washington football team. Speaking of Parrott, 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits allowed, 5 pressures, 1 start in 11 games. I don't think he was inactive for any, but the games that he, was not playing right tackle, left tackle, whatever, he was on special teams. Towards the end of the season, he really did start to struggle. I mean, you saw more snaps, so that's where you're going to see it. A little bit against Arizona because Daniel Jones was, half healthy, not even. He was hobbling around, and Parrott gave up a quarterback hit and I think a forced fumble there that Daniel Jones recovered. And then you look at what they did against Baltimore. They were totally outplayed. They were totally outcoached. They were totally out schemed. And Parrott was one of the guys that struggled that game. Now you move on to the other right tackle, Cameron Fleming. And this guy, and I'll make comments on him in just a minute, he was not expected to start because Solder opted out. Things would have gone normally. You would have had Solder at left tackle and Andrew Thomas at right tackle, rotate Matt Parrott in, and if injuries happened, Cameron Fleming. But he gave up 6 sacks and 35 quarterback pressures. And I'll let you state your thoughts on the tackle position before I go into what the Giants could do and should do, in my opinion.
Yeah, like the Giants this year they had the highest or the lowest team pass block win rate, and that's not something you can have. Like you have to fix that. I think it was because of the rotation, and like I'm not a big fan of the rotation when it came to the O line. It kind of caught me by surprise. This is my first year seeing it with the Giants doing it. I know it's Joe Judge's first year, but I personally, I did not like Cameron Fleming at all this year. I thought he causes way too many penalties and he just got beat a lot. I like Pert. I know he was young, but I would have rather us have two rookie tackles and just let them get the experience then instead of switching them in and out. And I'm not going to say it's a major reason, but a piece of why I think Pert's game started to show a little bit of struggles. Like you said, he got a increase of playing time, but he also did miss a couple games with COVID. So I think that took a toll on him, like as a person and when it came to football. So when it comes to the tackle position, I do believe in Andrew Thomas. I know he didn't have a year like Tristan Wirfs did, but I still think he can be a solid left tackle. I don't think this is a case of Eric Flowers. I think we found our left tackle to watch Jones's blind side. And I think I still think you go out and get somebody in free agency, or even you resign Fleming to a lower end deal, and you start Pert. And then if, like you said, injuries happen, then that's when he comes in. But I don't believe he should be a starter any point of the season. I think you go with the two young tackles.
So I do agree with you on Cam Fleming. Even though people are going to come out there and just for argument's sake will say, oh, $4 million deal in 1 year. He wasn't paid like, a rookie contract where it's going to extend. You know what? Let's cut the bait out. Let's cut the bull crap out right now. Cameron Fleming, in my opinion, did not play well. Put away the contract. You need production on the field, whatever price it could be. And you could debate contract. You could debate that stuff later. 6 sacks and 35 quarterback pressures. As a veteran, you have to upgrade your play, A, because you have a second-year quarterback, and B, you're getting put in a starter position. I think the Giants should have re-signed Mike Remmers in free agency, but at the same time, we saw what he did in the Super Bowl. He wasn't very good against Jason Pierre-Paul.
At all.
And we saw that. So my thinking, and I do agree that, tackle in free agency, tackle in the draft could be possible for, possibility. But let's go over some options in free agency. As I said, Remmers, Taylor Moton, and Trent Williams, they're both high money free agents. The Giants are not going to get them. Moton maybe, but again, Ty Nsekhe, he's 36 years old, but he's a veteran tackle, so I think he does play a little bit better, still at his age. I think he was last with the Buffalo Bills. I want to say he was a starter when Cody Ford was out. Alejandro Villanueva from the Steelers, high-priced free agent, left tackle, not going to happen. Jason Peters, maybe, but you only see him play left tackle, and that's not really what you need when you're not sure about Matt Parrott. Matt Filer, I definitely would not be against it. He plays left guard a little bit. He plays right tackle a little bit. You sign him like a $4 million deal on a 1-year contract. Very good, in my opinion. Joe Haig, same thing. He played with the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kendall Lamb from the Cleveland Browns played well when Jack Conklin or Jedrick Wills, I forget which one was out. I think it was Conklin, I want to say. Darrell Williams from the Bills played very well, and a lot of people are looking at that in free agency. Now, you take a look at the draft. Rashawn Slater in round one. I'm not feeling it, and I wouldn't be against it, but that's not what you need in round one. If he falls to you, I mean, the Bengals could take him. There could be other teams that take him, but it's just not what the Giants should, I think, prioritize. And I know best pick, best player available when they get to you. But I just think that you could still survive with what you have either in a free agent position or maybe later in the draft where you select a developmental project just as depth. So I don't think that Rashawn Slater, again, it's not that he's a bad offensive lineman. He's one of the best tackles in the draft. I just don't think it's right for the Giants. Other offensive tackles in the later rounds from like 3 to 7, Jackson Carman out of Clemson, Thayer Munford out of Ohio State, Stone Forsythe out of Florida, Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa, Jake Curhan out of California, Alaric Jackson out of Iowa, and Brady Christensen out of BYU. Where do you think, and I don't know if you've been watching the free agent market in terms of tackles, but any of the tackles in the draft free agency catch your eye? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I haven't looked too into it, but I did a good amount of research when it came to free agent tackles. One guy was Williams from Buffalo. I think that was a Dave Gettleman drafted, I believe, or he had some type of connection with Dave Gettleman. But he did watching Bills games. He played really well. He played good enough to be a good tackle in the NFL, and I think if we could get him, he would be a compliment to Andrew Thomas on either side, whichever we decided to put them. I do believe if we did end up signing him, that would make Matt Pert a good rotational piece. You know, I think Matt Pert's like 6'7" with great arm length. So I think him at a rotational piece would be excellent for our development. In the draft, I think I kind of there's specific guys like different positions that I want to go 1 through 3, but there was a couple guys that think the Patriots got an O lineman in like round 6. The Steelers got a guy in like round 4. So I do believe it's not as common, but you can find good tackles in round 4 to 7. It's not impossible. Dave Gettleman just has to be good at drafting them, and he has to. I mean, he's been a hit or miss type of guy when it comes to drafting. He's hit sometimes, and he's missed on guys. I do believe he's a good drafter. That is good thing about him. So I do believe if he sees a guy in the draft, he'll take him. Rashawn Slater. Now, I think with him being 6'3", I think people are gonna overlook him a bit. Like, he's still a very talented player. But like you said, I agree with you on that one. I don't think you go there at 11. If it did so happen that we ended up trading back, if he fell to us, I wouldn't be against it. I would actually root for it, because if we did my 2 guys for trading back as Bateman and him. So if that did happen, I would actually be in love with that, because that's the dream scenario always, when you can get more picks and then still get the guy you want.
So here's some questions regarding the tackle position. I'm going to lay out my plan and what I would do in that situation. So, questions. You got to make a decision, not necessarily a question, but something you have to figure out. Make a decision on Matt Parrott. Where are you with him? And you, as just saying, as a coaching staff, the Giants, they have to figure out if they'll need a higher priority offensive tackle or just a backup tackle. If they re-sign Cameron Fleming, that means 2 things, or could mean 2 things. Either Matt Parrott is not ready in their mind, or Cameron Fleming impressed them enough to be the swing tackle. Now, we don't know if, Cameron Fleming played well for them. We don't know if they think that Matt Parrott is going to be the starter going into next year. I personally don't think he will. Could he? I wouldn't be mad about it. Just as long as he's coached well, we have a preseason, and he doesn't hit a sophomore slump. I mean, you're going to have that anyway, but, still. So you have to see where you are with him. And that's definitely a decision for the Giants to make. You need to make a decision on tackle, free agency, or draft. Free agency, also depending on who you select and from free agency, whether it's going to be a high contract, probably not, or like one of them low risk minimum veteran deals, that will probably tell you that they'll start or rotate them on the right side or possibly use them as a swing tackle. So there's a lot of questions in the air right now. And veteran backup tackle or drafted developmental player? Another one for the Giants to figure out. For veteran backup, you could go Remmers, you could go Fleming again, you could go any of the other guys. But if you want to go developmental player, go from 3 to 6 in the rounds. Personally, I don't think the Giants are in as bad of a position at tackle as they were last year before the draft, because you saw Andrew Thomas, then Matt Parrott, then Shane Lemieux. Dave Gettleman got depth on the offensive line. So I don't think that the Giants are dead at that position. I wouldn't mind if they took a late round tackle once again, but you have to see where you are with Matt Parrott, and you have to judge the free agent class really well. And also you have to keep in mind, just as a general footnote, which players opted out last year. So here's my plan on how I would do things. I would let Cam Fleming walk. His play didn't necessarily entice me last year. Penalties, again, it's not just, look at the stat sheet, 6 sacks, 35 pressures. He had how many holding penalties, false start penalties. A veteran shouldn't be making these mistakes. And I get it. The whole offensive line was bad. We gave up the third most sacks in the NFL, but still no excuse. Especially when you're playing on a Joe Judge team that really doesn't allow penalties. I mean, no team allows penalties, but Joe Judge comes from the Belichick tree, and they don't allow penalties. They punish for penalties. I would sign Joe Haig or some of them low risk, high reward backup offensive tackles. As I said, coming from Super Bowl 55 winners, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think that is generally a good spot to look. Joe Haig also was with the Colts, so he was with another good O-line. If Daigle Yelmo would have stayed, that would have been familiarity, because 2018 he was with the Indianapolis Colts. So I would sign him or any of the low risk, high reward, long, short-term contract free agents at tackle. And if you don't do that, go in the draft, address the needs first, then go in the later rounds and say, okay, let's select this guy. And then see where Matt Parrott is in terms of where he's playing. Because you got to do a pre-evaluation and a post-free agency draft evaluation, in my opinion. Because when you do the post-evaluation, you have to see how he plays in the preseason. Is he ready to be starting? Are you going to rotate offensive linemen? So I think that's definitely a question that the Giants have to answer on both sides: the pre-free agency, the pre-draft, and the post-draft post-free agency. So I want to know your thoughts on that. And, again, I know I've been asking a lot, but what are your just thoughts on that general situation?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, I know I said 4 to 7, but you did 3 to 6 is a great spot. I know the draft, you can never really tell where people are going to go, but I would even say, if somebody like Alex Leatherwood, if he slipped to 43, I wouldn't be opposed to taking him there if he did, or if we end up trading back and got a higher second round or something like that. But I do think, like you said, you mentioned Haig, you do try and attack it. Like, you make it one of the things you go for in free agency, especially if you have the mindset that you're going to go through rotational offensive linemen. You definitely have to have the mentality that you want to pick somebody up when it comes to free agency. One of the lower end, higher ceiling type of guys. I mean, they're not always easy to find, but if you can hit on one of them, then that makes your life a whole lot easier. But if you decide, okay, there's nobody here that I want to get in free agency, then it's a must that you have to draft at least 1 to 2 offensive linemen over the course of the draft, because there aren't for sure tackles or for sure guards that we have on this team that are going to stay long term, or that are going to answer the problems that we have on the offensive line.
Regarding that, we don't know how Shane Lemieux is going to look going into the next season. He struggled tremendously in the last 8 to 9 games. Also to note, Will Hernandez, is he falling out of favor with the coaching staff? Is he going to get cut? Because I know they saved about $2 million with his cap cut. Kevin Zeitler, is he going to get cut? So I think the Giants definitely have to go out in either free agency or the draft with the guard position as well. But I think draft is more, I think it's a better option, because it's kind of uneven in the free agent market from what I saw. You got upper guys like Joe Tooney and Brandon Scherf who gonna want that, big money contracts. Like maybe the Jets will offer, maybe the Washington football team, maybe those O-line needy teams will offer. Giants are not there. Giants do not need a guard that much. And if they wanted one of them too, I would say keep Kevin Zeitler, because why would you cut him just to sign another high paid offensive guard? And then you go into the backup offensive guards who aren't really that good. I don't remember a couple of their names, but they just didn't impress me as, oh, you could sign this guy as a backup. Go to the draft and get one. So let's go to the center position. Current centers on the roster, you have Jonathan Harrison from the Jets, was on the Colts practice squad a little bit. Actually, no, played for the Colts before he went to the Jets and was on the Bills practice squad all season. Did not get activated once, but he was protected. Nick Gates this season gave up no sacks, but 16 pressures. Some context to that. Over the first 5 games, he gave up 8 pressures. Then throughout the entire season from week 6 to 17, gave up 8 total pressures, never gave up a sack, which is good compared to John Halapio the prior season. So he may not be that all-pro center that the Giants fans are looking for, but he is the solid center. He's the nasty guy on the offensive line. He's going to defend your quarterback. We saw that with Aaron Donald and Jalen Smith. And then you have Spencer Pulley, the backup center. And obviously we'll get to the questions later, but Spencer Pulley you can cut for cap money. Now there's different sites debating each other, like Spot Track and Over the Cap saying, oh, he's on a contract. He's not on a contract. He's on a contract. They signed him to a 3-year extension after 2018. So 2019, 2020, and 2021. I think it was like $9 million or something like that. Some related to that. So in terms of draft options, I didn't put free agency down because I don't think that the Giants are going to go that route, nor should they. If you want to do center, go in the draft. In the later rounds, again, Joe Skolthorpe out of NC State, Derek Kirksetter out of Texas, Drake Jackson out of Kentucky, and Doug Kramer from Illinois. And you could also get an undrafted free agent if you like, whatever, fits best for you. But I don't think that the Giants should go in the draft because I don't think it's that needy of a position. Again, some questions to answer. Do they move Nick Gates to guard if Kevin Zeitler is cut? I honestly don't think that. I don't have that mentality because if he's good at center, why are we moving him around the offensive line? We're not playing musical chairs. Keep him at the center position, keep him snapping the ball. And as I said, maybe find another guard, maybe find another center just to back him up or whatever. Should the Giants cut Spencer Pulley for cap space? Obviously, I think they should. I'm giving you a little hint to my plan. And do the Giants draft a late round center or draft an undrafted free agent? So what are your thoughts on that? How would you approach it?
Yeah, I like you said, you hinted it, but I do agree Spencer Pulley should be on his way out. We should cut him. But a guy you didn't mention who I think there's 2 guys actually who I think they may fall to the 3rd round, could be lower end 2nd round guys. But guys like Ben Cleveland and Creed Humphrey. I know Ben Cleveland was a guard and Creed Humphrey was a center, but Nick Gates showed to me at least that he has everything you want in a hog mind. Like you said, he only gave 8 pressures from week 6 to 17. So he showed improvement, especially this was his first year as a center. He showed me that he can be, I'm not going to say all pro center, but I think he can be the center that solidifies it for us for a good amount of time. He has he has everything you want in him. He has the angry attitude that you want. You saw him, I think it was in the Cowboys game. He was in everybody's face. And the part that I like about him is he's always looking to hit somebody, even when the plays whenever he has nobody in front of him, he'll go pancake somebody else. He'll always be in the second level. He's just everything you want in a center. And like you said, we don't want to play musical chairs. Joe Judge mentioned in his press conference, I think when he first started, he said we're gonna find guys and we're not gonna move them around. We're gonna find what they do good and let them do that. Nick Gates showed you that he can do good at the center position. So you don't move him anywhere else. You let him stay there and keep working at that and get better and better and better as you go along. Like I mentioned, like I said, Ben Cleveland and Creed Humphrey, those 2 guys, like Ben Cleveland, I know played guard, so I wouldn't mind him especially if he fell to us in the 4th round, I wouldn't mind that. But if Creed Humphrey was there in the later rounds, I don't think moving him to guard would be that much of a problem because I know center and guard it's still a change, but it's not too big of a change. So I think if we were able to get him later in the third, maybe even fourth round, I still think you draft the O lineman. But I think, in my opinion, you go one tackle, one guard, just to add more to the rotational piece. I think you can restructure Zeitler's contract, and especially he's the veteran. So I think him being the veteran, he still can teach these younger guys, like guys who like Nick Gates, who's still younger, Shane Lemieux, Will Hernandez, who might be on his way out, who knows? And even when you draft people, so it's all what Dave Gettleman wants to do. Is if he still likes Will Hernandez. So I think what he does with Will Hernandez, or how he goes about that situation, will tell a lot for the future.
I like what you brought up about always wanting to hit somebody. That was Nick Gates this season. And what you need is a center. And most of the time, it's going to be a four-man rush. So you're not going to get a guy that's just right across from you and he's going to rush you. No, he's going to rush the left guard. And then the other guy's going to rush the right guard. What we saw from Nick Gates, as you said, he's always wanting to hit somebody. If he's got nobody in front of him, it's not a blitz. He's going to push and help the left guard. Same thing with the right guard. And, just an off-topic thing, Kevin Zeitler struggled with stunts. Cameron Fleming, both of them struggled with handling stunts, which was a problem. But on a more positive topic, Nick Gates has awareness. That's what you need when you have a center. If it's a four-man rush, just like as I said how many seconds ago, you got to go out and hit the guy next to you, help your veteran guard, help your rookie guard, whatever. Just help the guy next to you and, solidify the pass protection. John Halapio the year before, he didn't have awareness as a center. And we get it. John Halapio was coming off injury, but at the same time, people were saying, oh, it's the first time he plays center in 2018, 2019, whatever. No, it was not the first time he played center. He played center in the 2017 preseason, which is something I didn't know till like late last year. And I was watching the Steelers-Giants game over again. I'm like, John Halapio played center before. I don't know what people are talking about. So Nick Gates definitely has the awareness. And it shouldn't be one of those things. And I say this all the time with Will Hernandez. If you have an average 16-game starter like Hernandez or Gates, and you want an all-pro, I don't think that's where you want to be in a mindset if you're building a football team. And I get it. Different coaching staffs, different, mindsets. Will Hernandez, Joe Judge, because Hernandez was drafted with the Shermer coaching staff. My point is, why would you replace him when he's average and he gives you 16 games? Because I'd rather have that, in my opinion, than a left guard. You draft him high, he plays 6 games a year and plays solid, but again, he's injury prone, or draft a total bust at left guard. And I'm not calling Lemieux that by any means, but getting rid of Hernandez, again, for cap money seems a little bit odd because I don't think the Giants would make that move. But just getting rid of him and then trying to replace him just doesn't make a lot of sense, at least to my mindset. And here's my plan to go about the center position. Obviously, as I said before, cut Spencer Pulley. I want to give Jonathan Harrison a chance at the backup center role. Obviously, you'll have the chance with the backup free agents and the undrafted free agents, whatever. You'll have a chance to have at least 3 centers on the roster, team 1, team 2, team 3. Nick Gates is going to be that 1, Jonathan Harrison likely that 2. And he could be a rotational piece on the offensive line because he just does not play center. He'll play guard on occasion. But again, center is his best position. He's a good run blocker, pass blocker as well. Sign a undrafted free agent to compete with Harrison. We have, I think, 6, 7 picks this year, somewhere in that range. I want to focus on the needs and the talent. If you have a center fall to you like Creed Humphrey or whatever, definitely select one, but also keep in note the other options. So that's why I would sign an undrafted free agent. And then you have Nick Gates. Leave him where he is. Don't rotate him guard center because that just messes up the whole mindset, the whole chemistry of the offensive line. If you keep rotating guys like Nick Gates from position to position, the unit's not going to know how to play with each other in that mindset and, at the positions because it's going to be musical chairs, as we said multiple times. So leave him at center. You draft a guard or you draft a center to play guard. That's what the Saints did. They drafted Eric McCoy in 2019. In 2020, they drafted Cesar Ruiz. Everyone thought that he was, he's a center. Well, he played right guard for most of the year after they cut Larry Wofford. So your final thoughts on the center position, basically final thoughts, how would you go about it?
Yeah, like I said, I think you keep Nick Gates there, and I think an underrated thing that people don't really focus on that is a big part of why I don't like moving the O line around is that the O line has just as much chemistry as every other position as the whole team does, but most importantly, they have it the most because if Andrew Thomas can rely on Will Hernandez and Will Hernandez can rely on Nick Gates, and they all can trust each other to get their block, then it makes life easier for all three of them. So moving them around messes up that trust because then maybe Andrew Thomas won't trust that somebody won't get his block toward the inside or something like that. So I just think you let everybody play where they are. You let them stay where they are. Don't do the rotational things. I think we found our guy at center, but like I do believe I actually like the undrafted free agent idea because you might find a hit. And there's always, I think Tony Romo was like half the league's undrafted free agents. So you will be able to hit on one. So hopefully it's on the center position. He can compete with the Jet center that we picked up, or if we can see how he works at guard. But you definitely bring in depth at the O lineman position.
Speaking of which, Nick Gates is an undrafted free agent. So that serves our point pretty well. 2018, he was injured most of the preseason and stayed on the roster, signed to a futures contract. So that's why I really don't. When I look at futures contracts, everybody says, "Oh, they're not going to make the roster." Well, you never know. That's something I learned. 2019, obviously coming back on that futures contract, played through mini camps, whatever. 2019 became a backup tackle, backup guard, played pretty well in the spots for Zeitler and Remmers. In 2020, he's now our starting center, all 16 games, and uh, that's the path of the NFL life for an average undrafted free agent. I mean, obviously, a lot of players don't get those chances, but when you get the chance in the preseason or whatever, you have to impress. And Nick Gates obviously impressed the Giants coaching staff, both of them. So I think that's very important to note there. That is the end of the episode. This episode of the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast, episode number 86. If you guys haven't already, subscribe to Keith's channel, All Things Giants. Starting out Giants content creator, joining the club, joining Giants Twitter. Also at, I think, All Things Giants as well. I'll put the link when this premieres and also put the link when I'm editing out the video. So, Keith, thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thanks
guys
for
for
having me.
watching. Also, you can check out his articles at uncutsn.com for Uncut Sports News. Keith, thanks for coming on. Thank you guys, and we'll see you on Friday.